All right, so welcome to week 15, day one. Today we are going to be covering nested models with Django REST Framework. So we're gonna read a little bit about nested models first, but y'all have already been dealing with nested models already. I don't know if you knew you were, but maybe you did. Now we're gonna kind of talk about what this means to have a nested model. So first, does anybody want to tell me what they think nested model means in Django? If you were talking, Jonathan, I see your mouth moving. You're not off mute.
I was reading out loud to myself.
Okay, okay.
But I think it's I had an answer, but it's gone. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anybody else want to take a stab? Since we've been using it before, let's think about our Pokemon project we've been working in. We have Pokemon, we have moves, and if that third-party API call, we won't really worry about that. But
The only
think
thing
about
I could think of is like when we use relationships, but I don't feel like that's nesting a model in a class model, is it?
Yep, so that is the direction we're going. When we have that relationship between the models, right now we have Pokemon and we have moves kind of associated with that. Let's see, we'll take a look at let's pull it up and see what this does. I'm gonna go into, I've got it up already, Pokemon. Um, and I've already got my Docker image running. The database is populated with at least one Pokemon, and I've got my server up and running. So looking at this view here, we can see when we do go to this all Pokemon API view, looks like we're getting a Pokemon object here. But then we also come down and we go and grab some move objects as well. And we can see it's kind of doing a for loop through our Pokemon and then grabbing a move object for that Pokemon. So this is kind of like that nested structure we're talking about, where we're getting the Pokemon, but then we also need to get the move that is associated with it, but it's not just automatically in this model, it's in a different model. We come down to one type of Pokemon. Let's see. Here we do a get by ID. We'll get a Pokemon object. And this is going to be a good example. So this one does not reference any move object here. Okay, this one just references the Pokemon object itself. So I'm going to hit this endpoint and show you what happens when we just grab that one model, that one object, and we're not dealing with any nested relationships here. So let me pull up, let's see, I think it might be easiest. We'll do this just in the browser. Let's do a new window here. Go to the local host. Okay, so here I'm grabbing one Pokemon. Sorry for the bright blinding white. I saw everybody's faces turn really bright there. But we can see when I grab this, it grabs the Pokemon, like the name, level, date, all this. But then when I come to moves, it just gives me this ID number because we're just grabbing this one model's information, all these fields within this one model. But since we haven't done anything with the moves yet, it's nested within this moves field. We don't have anything being returned here. But this is what we're talking about nested. All these moves informations are nested within this Pokemon model. We could go to moves and just query that individually. Do we have that endpoint here? Let me look. Yeah, we have moves. Of course we do. Moves. Maybe we don't.
API and V1 are reversed.
Oh, thank you. That would do it if I'm not hitting the right endpoint. Does not exist. What is the ID? is 1. Why does it not exist?
I don't think we have our URL set up like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I admittedly did not go to look at how this GET request is happening for the individual. So, oh, is it set up to take the name? Maybe? It is. Okay. So we can come here and also just grab a move from this model. There's nothing nested here, it's just the move. But in reality, we don't want to just make single requests for each individual model that's within like our Pokemon. So we just want to pull a Pokemon, right? And we want to be able to query, like hit this endpoint and get back just everything associated with this Pokemon. We don't want to just pull back all the fields within this model. So we're going to look at how we can nest, or how we have this nested model within there, and we're going to do something here. Let's come back to the README. Now you can kind of read about some of the benefits of a nested model. So like I said, it allows you to get the information with one request instead of sending out a request to Pokemon first and then another request to move next to get the information on that move that we had associated with the Pokemon. So we could see here in the example, this is what it returns. But we want to get the information associated with this nested model. So to handle nested models in Django, we need to kind of work with the serializers within Django. Does anybody remember where we have serializers happening currently in our code? Oh, well, it's going to tell you right here in the README. So if we can see on the screen, so we've had it in our views within our code. So let's go to views. Let's take a look. And we can roll back up here. We have a serialize here. And then we just kind of, in all our requests, we throw in a serialize. Do we actually know what a serializer is and what it does? I'm seeing mixed reviews. I'm seeing some no's and some yeses. Okay, Jonathan, you shaking your head yes? No? Okay.
I'm just rocking in place. My bad.
Okay. I'm trying to look over at the video. Okay, so right now we have no idea what this is doing. We can read these comments though. Let's see what this says. So when we do this query, Django is going to give us a query set, right? It has just a whole bunch of objects in a query set. You can't read that. Like nothing's going to read that easily. So we need to transform it into JSON. So this serialize is Django's like built-in feature to take complex data types and break it down into binary string, which is just a simplest form you can get so that we can change it into whatever data type we want it to be, pretty much. So here we're changing it into, let's see. This is where we're going to change it into JSON. But we can choose to change it into some other format if we wanted. Some places use like XML or crap like that. But this serializes taking that complex data type, whatever it may be. In our case, our complex data type is a model and all the query sets and objects that are returned with that model. So it takes everything there, breaks it down into something easy to read, and then we can transform it into whatever data type we want. So that is what serializers do. And let's see. So if we come back down here, we're going to look at a couple things. Here we see we're serializing for this individual Pokemon. This is our get an individual Pokemon. We're using the serialize on the Pokemon model. So we're taking everything from that model and transforming that data into something readable for us. And what that means, as we can see here, is it's taking all the fields and transforming it into readable. And in the Pokemon model, our moves values are primary keys or IDs from the moves model, correct? Because we made that relationship. So within Pokemon, moves is just going to be a list of all the different IDs of those moves in the move model. So when we do this serialize, it's doing its job, but only on everything in the Pokemon model. We want it to give us the names of everything as well and all the information associated with this move. So this project actually has already done this. We go back up here, we can see we're serializing Pokemon right here. But then down here, we're also serializing right here. We're serializing the move data. So here we're pulling the moves, and then we're doing our serialize and turning it into JSON down here. So let's see what happens when we hit that endpoint, which is just all Pokemon, because this is the all Pokemon one. So here we can see that serialize when we do it on the moves object, the move object as well. It returns back all the information within that move table as well, the name, all that stuff
Okay,
associated.
so that ID then is just another Django query set until you serialize it. And then it takes that Django query set and you tell it to turn it into a JSON, right? So it
Well, so
returns.
no, that ID is just the ID, because in this table, if you query the SQL query behind this, the moves is just going to hold a list of numbers like 1, 5, 10, 20, and that's it. So then you'd have to make another query to go grab the associated move information. So you'd have to get by ID 1, and then it would return the move information. So that would be kind of a complex query you'd have to put together. In Django, it kind of handles it for us in this method.
Right, with the on your example here, because I don't have that anymore because of some issues I had, but it says like move data equals the move dot objects. So all the move objects in that move app, right?
Yes,
I think is
yes.
where it's getting it from. And then
Yep.
it's filtering through that and getting all the moves. And then where is it assigning this like that number one to it, I guess. So we could say like I only want that one.
So it's that ID. It's going to pull. So it's looking at the Pokemon that we just got.
Okay, because you made the variable up there, Pokemon
Right.
fields moves.
So
Okay,
then
so like that's another thing about this, the Django querying, right? ID underscore in, that's Django querying, correct?
yes, correct. Yep. It's how
Okay,
to query. So this underscore, the 2 underscores is usually like a pass through. Or I'd have to look up exactly what it is. But this one is just saying take that ID to match in this other model. Like, so we're going through Pokemon fields, moves, and getting that value, which is we only have 1 right now. Let me pull it back up.
so yeah, when it says filter, basically ID equals the number 1 in moves because we're using our Pokemon variable up there.
So the filter, yes. So what it's going to do is it's going to take this. So we're grabbing a Pokemon. So we've grabbed our 1 Pokemon, and then here we're going to look in it and say for each one that we get, because this is an all Pokemon, for each
Right.
Pokemon, we're going to filter and grab the move with the ID equaling this Pokemon, and then we go to fields, and then we go to moves, and that value is 1. So it's going to plug this one in right here, and it's going to say ID in equals 1, and it's going to take that move that equals that. It's this here equals the ID of the move, so we should, well, it's going to be the name is how I query it, but it should be. So it's going to come and find an ID of 1, which is this, because it equals the one that was in this Pokemon.
Okay, so it's saying basically move data equals the move data at that ID location.
Mhm.
And then you are inserting that, it looks like, into the Pokemon Field's moves spot. So it's no longer in a number. It's going to equal that data,
Correct.
serialized data.
Yes. 100%.
Thank you.
So this is one way to go ahead and do that nested serialization. You can apply it to the other model that you're grabbing that from. But we are going to look at doing a different way to serialize, because when we're working with I'm gonna pull this back over on the other screen, the README, when we're working with a small project, it's easy to just throw it in line and just keep serializing everything in line. However, as it gets like more complex, it's gonna not be very readable and maintainable to just throw serialize in every single endpoint that you have in your views. So I'm going to do like we've done with our validators and converters, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that out of the view, and we're going to add a file on the side. So we're going to, so this one's already done in a way you can copy if you like, and I'm going to leave that alone. That's one way to do it. It works. But I'm going to come down here now with this individual Pokemon where we don't. Remember, when we pulled the individual Pokemon, it just pulled that ID number. So I'm going to try to rewrite this view using a serializer to give me the information for the move. So we're going to dive into this. First thing we got to do is we got to create another file. And Django, the best practice is to name it serializers.py. So this is where I'm going to store.
Tiffany,
Yes.
I can interrupt. I think Justin's trying to get in.
Oh, somebody not letting him in. Let's see. And Allison, look at that. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. So just to recap for the couple joining now, we're making serializers for our models because when we query all Pokemon, we get, let's see, we're going to come back here. We're going to look at our all Pokemon, not Pokemon 1, just Pokemon. We get everything nice and laid out completely. We see our Pokemon and we see all the information about the move associated with it. Now, if we query just the individual Pokemon, excuse me, we can see this one isn't working quite so well. It only gives me an ID for the move associated with this individual Pokemon. So we are adding serializes for this nested model that we have within our Pokemon. We've done it before with the all Pokemon. We just serialize in line here. And we've done this kind of like for loop through and serialize the move data that way. But I am coming down now, and since my project's going to get bigger and bigger, I'm going to separate it out into its own file. And we are going to do this GET request with that individual and hopefully return all the information we need with that one request to this endpoint. And feel free to read through the README on kind of some information on maybe why we want to use the nested, or some of the little extra tidbits of information we can have using serializers. But so let's go back to our serializer file. So with this serializer, we're going to do an import like we do pretty much with everything else. We're going to import from our REST framework serializers. Because we do that in the other one as well, I like to use built-in Django features. And then we're going to have to import our model because serializers work on the model that we're pulling data from, right? Because that model's returning those huge query set objects that we can't take. We need to apply a serializer to that model. So here we're going to import from models. We're going to import Pokemon. Okay. So from this, we're going to set up a class because we've done that everywhere else. We're going to call this a Pokemon serializer. And we're going to inherit from something called model serializer. Looks kind of familiar, huh? Looks like kind of like what we're doing here in our models. We're, using a default model that comes built into Django. So we're doing the same thing with our serializer. We're going to use a built-in serializer that comes default, so we don't have to do much work on our end. Now, the structure for this, you'd get this reading the documentation. So you're going to do a class meta. And then we're going to give it the name of the model that we're getting our information from, which is Pokemon. And then we're going to give it the fields as well that are in this model. So it comes with ID, comes with name, comes with level, and moves. Okay, so now I would assume this looks good. However, nowhere in here am I dealing with the moves model. I'm not importing it anywhere. I'm not doing anything with it. So this is not going to work for what I need because it's still going to just pull this moves information as the ID number instead of giving me anything to do with the move model. So before I start working on fleshing this out more, I'm going to go up to the Move app and make a serializer for that as well. And it's going to be the same thing we're doing here. Serializers. And we're going to do the from REST framework. I should just copy and paste, but I'm not going to. Import serializers. And then from models, move. Okay. We're going to make another class. We're going to call this one move serializer. We're going to do serializers.model serializer. Okay. This one, the class meta. The model we're taking from is going to be move, and the fields associated with that model. And I am just going to copy and paste this. These are in the README, so if you aren't following along right now, you can refer back to that. Not double. Okay, so those are the fields. So we have a serializer for our move model now. So anytime I make a request for the moves, as long as I use this serializer, it will give me all the information with it. Cool. So how we can do a nested serializer is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to import that other serializer that I made for moves. So we're going to do from the move app model, or not models, serializers. We are going to import the move serializer. And again, documentation would show you how to lay this out. I'm going to stick this under as an attribute underneath this class. I'm going to say that moves are going to be using this move serializer. And I can leave it like this, but since we have this moves is a many to many field, I want to make sure to put in here many equals true. That way we can get multiple items returned instead of just one through the serializer. So by doing this, I'm saying that everything in this field, we're going to go ahead and throw into this move serializer and work it through that way. Cool. So I have these serializers. Now we're going to go ahead and add them to our view and update our view. Before we were doing inline serialize, but now we are going to, let's see, we're going to the selected Pokemon. Okay. So this is fine. This is just a helper function that we wrote to grab the individual Pokemon. So we'll come down to this one. This is good. We want to grab the Pokemon. But then instead of doing all this serialize here and serialize Pokemon, I'm going to take these out. We are going to do, let's see, serializer. We're going to identify what serializer we're going to use. And I know right now I'm going to have to import that. This is giving me a squiggly. Where do I import it from? Maybe it's just having me import the serializer. Let's see if it picks it up here. Did I spell it wrong? Oh, I'm just making a variable here. I'm ridiculous. Okay. So I'm just setting a variable. I'm defining that I'm going to say the serializer is going to equal our Pokemon serializer so that we can assign it to a variable we can work with later. And the serializer is going to take in Pokemons. It's just what we're saying it's going to take in. Typically you pass in the plural of whatever that serializer takes. And then we're going to do many. Oh, no, it doesn't take in. It's taking in this. We're going to pass in the data that we want to serialize. I'm sorry. So the serializer we're defining is going to be our Pokemon serializer. We need to pass it a model and data information. So we're going to give it this Pokemon that we just got. Okay, so that is what we do. And we're also, let's see, and that's it. That should be it. We're going to pass it the data, which is this Pokemon. It's going to come back to this Pokemon serializer and work its way through this now. And then in our response, instead of returning a serialized Pokemon, I'm going to go ahead and return our serialized data. And that will be in JSON format. So let's, or sorry, serializer data. I'm doing this all the time. I'm following the README, but I'm sort of not straying a little bit. Because when I went to go do this, I'm like, wait, this one's already set up for nested serialization. It's just in the inline way. So had to, work it out for this one. Okay, so here we have, we're getting our Pokemon. We're saying our serializer is going to be this Pokemon serializer Pokemon, and then I'm going to return the data from that serializer. So let's see what this does. Now, do I need to do any migrations or anything here? What do we think? Consensus? Yes, no? When do I do migrations?
Do you only do migrations when you change the model?
Yes. And have I touched the model?
No.
Nope. Nope, I haven't. I've made it a serializer for it, but I haven't actually touched the model. So no need to go ahead and make migrations as long as you didn't mess with the model. So I'm going to save it. I always like to look at my server because every time if you save and something goes wrong, it'll tell you. But mine's recovered nicely after I saved and it's up and running. So I know things appear to be working. So let's go back and do this get Pokemon by the ID. And hopefully it will work. If not, we will troubleshoot it. So before it looked like this, now I expect that I hit it this time, it should give me the move information. And it did not. Let's see. Fields attribute or the exclude as dim, what? All to the Pokemon serializer. This did not do this yesterday. Let's see what we did here. Now, either the fields attribute. I have fields. Did I not have? I'm gonna pull this on the other screen so we can look at this. So it's saying creating a model serializer with the fields attribute. Let's go to our, let's see, model serializer. Oh, I wonder if it's this. Let me look back at my documentation to see if it is supposed to be fields. It is. It's this. It's expecting it to have fields with an S, and I just put field because I was rushing and did not notice. Let me look everything else over. So we have model is just singular, fields. Okay, I'm gonna save this. Oh, it recovered. Thank goodness. Let's go up and look at the other one too to make sure that one's fields. Okay. Let's go ahead and try this again now. We saved it. Let's hit this. And it worked. Now it gives us name and power. Is there supposed to be more with that? I've only added name and power. So let's take a look because I feel like the moves had more information associated with them. It does. It has PP and max PP and accuracy. So the serializer, you can restrict what fields you want to be included in that. It doesn't even level. Does it have level? It doesn't have level. Oh, this is move. So this one doesn't even work because we wouldn't be passing a level key. But obviously it doesn't complain. I think it would complain if you tried to do a post request to level and it didn't work, but we're not dealing with post requests today. We just need to understand how to get information from a nested model. So I'm going to remove this. And so we saw then, wait, oh, that's Pokemon. Jeez. We're in the Pokemon one. We're in the Pokemon serializer. It's easy to get mixed up. Okay, Pokemon serializer. They do have name level moves. We want to go to the move serializer. I only have name and power. So let's add, what else did we say it had? Take that out. Go back to the model. We have accuracy, max PP. Let's add them. So this is to illustrate fields you put in here will show what you've identified or will not show. So if you didn't want to give everything up front at this endpoint. Oh, oops. Not at this endpoint. Anytime you use this serializer. So, okay, we'll do this. Save it. Everything looks good. Come back to our request again. And now we can see it's adding the other information that I threw in there too. So there's more things you can do with your serializer. There's a little blurb about how you can put in like a read only equals true on the, let's see, you'd go in under the views. So you can add different things to your serializer here. We could do like a, oh, no, don't put it there. Where do I put it? That should be many. I should be able to, not many, geez, read only. If you add a Oh, it's underscore. You'd have to read documentation. I'm sorry. I haven't messed with this much, but you can do some things with your endpoint that the README tells you about, where you can add in like it's read only. So anybody who comes to this, a get is only going to give you a read only anyways. But let's say you have an endpoint that's set up to do a get and a post at the same URL endpoint, then you can add a read only equals true just to make sure then they don't accidentally post. You can restrict permissions, so some hit this one to give a read only, but others will hit another one that gives you full access to be able to mess with this endpoint. But that's extra fun you can do with this. For now, we just want to make sure that you understand how to create a new serializer file, pull out, you'll follow this setup where you have your class and then a class meta, and you have the model and the fields. And then if you want to do a nested model within it, move does not have any nested. We're not having a relationship with any other model, but our Pokemon is. And then you have to pick the field that is that nested model and assign its own serializer in the class attributes up there. And of course you have to use it in here. And look, we didn't have to do a JSON loads or anything because using these, this model serializer kind of makes a lot of things more simple. Updates behind the scenes here. Let's see, you can look into that. But any questions on how to do this? Today, we're only dealing with GET requests. So we'll for the rest of the week, we're going to cover the rest of CRUD operations with nested models. But for now, we're just working on when I hit an endpoint, I want everything that's supposed to, I want to see all the information. I don't want any IDs. I want everything returned with it. So good. All right, I will stop recording and then we'll go over the assignment for the day.